All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. So this is kind of a part two to my previous video because some of you guys in the comment section have, made a few suggestions and stuff like that. Like, hey, I'd like for you to do this, or I'd like for you to do that. And on top of that, some people still didn't quite understand in terms of what I was getting at. But at the same time, I also wanted to give a little bit of context in terms of the future, both in possibly in content creation and as well as, well, what are those important things that you've been talking about? And it's actually quite personal, but I decided to open up a bit. But first, I actually want to say thank you very much to everybody who showed up in the last video, because it seems that according to numbers, everybody that has been here since around the days of X Defiant were the ones that showed up to that video to see it, and as well as many comments that were made and stuff like that. It was very, very touching. And I just want to say thank you for the things that you guys have had to say. But with that being said, I want to open up and share a bit more, and including why I actually stopped playing Splitgate 2 in the first place. And previously, I just mentioned that it was health issues, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into that, and then we'll just kind of go into there. So a few months ago when I stopped playing Splitgate 2, I had basically, long story short, I had an eye problem that was causing other issues and stuff. I've had a few tests done right now, but there's still like a few more that I need to do to go from there. And as well as some visual things going on. It's mainly about the eyes, but recently I've also been told by a specialist that PT, physical therapy, could very well be the solution to the problem. But there's still a few more tests I need to do. One of them said that I really don't need to, but at the same time I'm deciding to do so unless I change my mind at the last minute and just kind of go from there after PT, after getting more specific results. But that's basically the long and the short of it. And that's also why I've actually stopped playing just games in general, just pretty much resting my eyes. I'm trying to be a little bit better about using the orange tinted glasses from whenever I'm watching stuff on the screen and all that kind of stuff. But with that being said, that's pretty much it right there. And then that actually caused me to ask the question to myself, like, Jack, what would you be doing if, like, let's just say, you couldn't game anymore, right? If you couldn't game anymore, or let's just say if you could do anything besides gaming, right? If you were just to make a choice, whether it was because of health reasons or not, what would you be doing and how would you be living your life if gaming and content creation wasn't a thing for whatever reason, whether it was because of a personal choice or a health choice? Like, what would you do? And the only answer that actually became very, very clear to me for various reasons that I will go in detail to is getting back into a passion that I previously had, that has been kind of an unfinished chapter in my life, as well as doing a couple of other previous things that I started doing years ago and finishing those up in terms of what I previously enjoyed doing. So they're actually a little bit different, but they're within the same category. So first of all, for those of you guys that are not familiar, it was actually this month, about 14 years ago, when I stopped teaching martial arts. I used to teach the art of Taekwondo. I was very, very dedicated. My life revolved around it. I would train for 2 hours before starting to teach. I would teach all day, everybody from kids to adults. I was the main instructor at the school, all the programs, you name it, I've done it. And that was my life for about 7.5 years. And then even after teaching all day, there would also be times where I would train afterwards as well. That was my life. And then weekends I would rest, and then it would be rinse and repeat. And then sometimes on weekends I wouldn't even rest. I would just either continue to train or go to the gym or whatever. But anyway, that was my journey. And then for about 2.5 years prior to that, I also took it as a kid. And then when I came back when I was 19 years old, I just continued from where I left off. And then when I was ready to progress, I would progress. And before I started teaching, I was taking 8 classes a week for 2 classes a day, Mondays through Thursdays. And time outside of training as well, time outside of school training as well, because I was really, really into it, really, really dedicated, until I was one day approached about teaching. And when you're 19 years old or 20 years old, that sounds really good. I'm sorry, no, I was 20 when I was approached to teaching, sometime before I turned 21. And before then I was assisting here and there, but that was my only passion at the time. And I said, absolutely yes. And during that time, I would also get to the point to where not only would I make it very far in the art, as well as my teaching skills, but I would also fall in love with another martial art called jiu-jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that aspect of my training was unfinished because, well, I never got promoted because I was required, because of my dedication and everything else with Taekwondo. And plus, I really didn't care about promotions anymore. But I spent about 4 years doing that. But it was something that I always wanted to finish. And it was always tapping me on the shoulder, like, Jack, get back into jiu-jitsu, finish your jiu-jitsu journey, get your black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's something you've always wanted to do. You've always wanted to get to that skill. You love the art, et cetera, et cetera. And right now, in terms of where my body is, or, in terms of the previous martial arts training, that in the long run, not very good for your knees. And there's a lot of stuff that I was doing that would end up, doing some damage to the knees. Also, when you look at gaming, and the amount of time I spent sitting down gaming and all that kind of stuff, plus having some arthritis in my lower back, it's like, I just thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? If I keep going in this particular route, whether it's my eyes, whether it's my lower back and some of the other things, it's like, well, this may not be the best choice. Plus, like I mentioned in my previous video, in terms of the way multiplayer shooters are now and the content and stuff like that, it's like I started just asking myself, like, what's the point, with all due respect, of course, to my viewers and everything. But, from a personal standpoint, it just made all the sense in the world. It's like, spend a significant amount of time, not like I used to, because training 4 hours a day at age 41 is, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I wouldn't be able to train 4 hours a day unless maybe I was taking gear, which I'm not doing. So with that being said, training, I'd say a couple hours a day, plus maybe an hour a day of weight training for, let's say 4 days a week or something like that. Let my body heal and rest in between, work on my stretches and stuff like that. Putting all that together. Plus, on top of that, there's also another personal project I'm working on. It's writing a book, because I do have a lot of knowledge that I've gained over the course of 10 years, between teaching and practicing the martial arts. And I kind of wanted to create something personal just to have within my inner circle, whether it's something to pass on for generations and stuff like that. It was a concept that I had when I first stopped teaching, which was 14 years ago this month. And it was something that I always, went back and forth in attitude. But lately I've been writing a lot more in that aspect, and I want to continue to do that and finish it. Also do audio and video forms of it as well. It's been a vision that I've had for years, so I want to be able to do that. So, and on top of that, with whatever remaining time you have left, I've really, over the last 3+ years or so, I've enjoyed getting back into the dating world. And obviously there's positives and negatives to be had with that, obviously, but yeah, I always look at the positives. Obviously the vast majority of people you're going to date are not going to be in your life forever. So it's like, but there's still the process, and you have a choice. You can either enjoy the process or not enjoy the process. And I enjoy the process. I've had 5 passions in my life. I've had passions for martial arts. I've had passions for video games. I've had passions for movies. I've had passions for food, and I've had passions for women. Simple as that. And I've enjoyed it. So it's like, I would like to enjoy more time doing that, and spending more time in the dating world, spending a little bit more time playing pool, which is something I would like to also get better at, because I do enjoy the game. And personal life and all that kind of stuff. So when you put everything together, there's really not that much time left remaining after sleeping and working and all that kind of stuff. And there's only so much you can do. So between everything health-wise, everything personal-wise, that question I asked to myself about what would you be doing if you couldn't, or are just not gaming or whatnot, how would you live your life? And that is pretty much the answer. It's like finishing what I had started years ago, pretty much unfinished business, and, accomplishing my goals in the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as well as getting to the point to where, I can be in better shape physically. I can focus more on my stretching. I could just, focus just more on everything like that. It's much more personal now. Content creation was something that was, very entertaining, but at the same time, it would be something that would just knock me off balance. And I'm not one of those people to half-ass things, so if it's martial arts, it's like I'm all in, And again, I can't really do both, especially if one has the possibility of just overriding the other at any given point. It's like you gotta stay locked in, you gotta stay focused. So you gotta pick. That's the way it works for me. For some other people, it works good for them to kind of mix things up, which is fine. But I'm just saying that's just how it works for me. But with that being said, there are days to where I would have a little bit more time. I've always loved watching movies, so as far as content creation goes, I could always create a third channel and do a movie commentary channel. Because before I started doing X Defiant content, I was just doing random stuff, and that's one of the things that I was doing. And lo and behold, like sometime later, I also looked at the views, and I'm like, huh, wow, a lot of people like are into this kind of stuff. So it's like, I might create a movie channel or something like that, or just talking about movies, which wouldn't really take long to make content on. And if I'm watching a movie, which I normally do anyway, for like anywhere from an hour and a half to a couple hours out of the day, how hard would it be for me to hit the record button and just to upload stuff? You know what I mean? Or to do something like that live, how hard would that be? It really wouldn't put a difference in my schedule or anything like that. It wouldn't interfere with anything at all. If anything, it would help balance things out, but it wouldn't be nearly as time consuming as gaming and all that other stuff. Plus, at the same time, I don't really have to worry about my eyes as much and all that, everything like that while I'm in recovery. And so hopefully that ends up being a thing as well, to where that gets resolved. But it's still too soon to tell at this point. So when you put everything together, I had like in some ways I had no choice, but at the same time I do have a choice. There's always a choice, and the better choice is the one that I just described to you. So that is what is more important to me than doing the whole content streaming multiplayer shooter thing. Because again, between the gaming that you do for, like, let's say an X amount of hours, then you make the videos, which could take anywhere from an hour or longer, depending on, and then research and all that kind of stuff, as I mentioned, my shorts and stuff like that, that's a significant amount of time. And I would rather spend that time focusing a little bit more on my body as well as my personal life, and stuff like that, because again, there's only so much time in a day. If a day had 36 hours instead of 24 and still requiring the same amount of sleep, then it's like, okay, then we could do both. But that's not the way things are. So for me, this just makes much more sense, and it's a lot more personal. And I'm not old, but I'm 41, so it's like, if there is a time to pick this stuff up now and to do it now and reach my goal at a certain point in time in my life, as well as being physically able to dedicate that kind of time into training, like the way I like to and the way I like to immerse myself, the time would be now. So that is what is going on in the process right now personally. So I just kind of wanted to share it with you, because again, some of you guys were curious. Some of you guys said, hey, why can't you just do this instead? Blah, blah, blah. So again, it's, if I enjoy doing something, whether it's something like gaming, content creation, or something like that, or things like martial arts, jujitsu, stuff like that, I really like to get immersed in it. You know what I mean? I really like to live it and stuff like that. And that's just the way I do things. Other people do different things a different way, and that's cool, but this is the way I do things. So, or the way I like to do things. So, and again, I can't ignore all the health stuff either that I mentioned towards the more beginning part of this video. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it, so this is why I have to, or had to, or chose to, basically stop. I had to make a choice, and this one just makes that much more sense. So, so for those of you guys that were curious or didn't quite understand, hopefully this makes a lot more sense. And at the same time, I wanted to just open up and just share it with you in terms of what's next. And sure, I could always do shorts and, just, do one short a day, when I start, or when I'm well within the journey, and just kind of do like a short blog or something like that. I don't mind that. And as far as, again, a movie commentary channel in the future is something I could do as well. And if my eyes are good enough to game and stuff like that, after doing a few more tests and a little bit more feedback, and stuff like that, I may do the occasional stream of a game of some sort. Maybe not a multiplayer shooter, but something else. But that's going to be a little bit later on down the road, if that were to happen. I gotta get my feedback first, and I just want to make sure I'm doing things right and as best as I can. So with that being said, again, thank you for taking the time to watch and or listen, guys. Thank you very much for the wonderful comments you guys had to say in my previous video. And but yeah, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And I'll catch you guys later.